Hi, I'm Clara Rose, and this is Influence Matters, the show where each week I share tips, tricks, tools, hacks, resources, and sometimes interviews to help savvy influence builders just like you to strategically and intentionally cultivate and build their influence, because we know that that's what organically generates leads for our business, ministry, cause, or brand, and that creates sustainability. And that's why we're here today. So before we get started, of course, we have to start out by saying thank you to those people who make it possible. So thank you to Rosedale Publishing, our sponsor. They specialize in business books, business brand books for professionals and entrepreneurs. So if that's you, those are the people to reach out to. And then, of course, thank you to the people over at Tampa Bay Multimedia and Weebing TV, where we are today in the studio, for they truly make this show possible. So thank you, thank you. Okay, so today we don't have a question of the week because we do have a special guest, and I'm really excited to tell you who our guest is in just a minute. But first, I want to just mention one really quick thing. We have in the past talked about the importance of a brainstorm and blueprint when you're getting ready to write your book, right? That's that process that helps you get all of your thoughts organized so that when you start writing your book, you don't write yourself into a corner, write yourself in circles. You know exactly what you're supposed to be saying and doing. And then, of course, that helps to avoid writer's block. But what if you are still experiencing writer's block? You've done the brainstorm and blueprint, you know what you're supposed to be doing, but you're just not doing it. I know some of you people out there. I know some of you that are my clients. This show is for you. So I have a special guest today. Her name is Karena Neukirchner, and she is a coach who specializes in helping people identify and heal subconscious blocks. So get rid of those blocks that are keeping you from doing those things that you want to do. So I'm super excited to have her with us, and she's going to talk all about that part of writer's block. So help me welcome Karena. Are you here? There you are. Hello. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Clara. I'm so happy to be here.
It is my pleasure. So first, just take a few minutes to tell us what you do. I, of course, probably didn't do you any justice when I just gave a little snippet. What you do, I'm sure, is much bigger than that. But I'm so focused on the writer's block piece that I have tunnel vision. So tell us about your business as a whole.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you did great. I appreciate it. So my business is called Hello Inner Light, and I basically just work with people to help identify and heal the old emotional wounds, subconscious blocks, and self-sabotaging core beliefs that are holding them back from living the lives that they long to live. And I work with a lot of writers and a lot of creatives because it is sometimes easy to get blocked when you're trying to share your voice with the world, when you're trying to share your heart with the world, and when you're really wanting to just bring through that authentic essence that you want to put into your book or into your videos or whatever the creatives are creating. So I love to work with people to really identify what is exactly holding them back. I work with a very holistic model of the psyche. So we include the subconscious, the inner child, and those primitive parts of our nervous system that are just trying to keep us safe. Sometimes the things that are holding us back are just trying to keep us safe. So that's what I specialize in.
So those are our friends that protect us, but we still need to figure out why they're blocking us. Why can I not sit down and write? I know what I'm supposed to be writing about. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not doing it. So how is writer's block connected to the subconscious mind? Tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So there are a couple of ways that I see people dealing with writer's block that have to do with the subconscious mind. And the first thing to understand about the subconscious mind is that 95% of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors actually originate in our subconscious. That's what current neuroscience tells us. And 95% is obviously a really huge percentage. So if we don't know how to deal with the stuff that's holding us back, then it can be really frustrating for us, because that 5%, we have these concepts of ourselves that we're conscious beings and we're in charge of our lives. And of course, that's true to some degree. But when we hold that belief that we're conscious beings fully in control of our lives, then it can be really frustrating when things like writer's block come up, where we just stare at a blank screen and it's like, I have absolutely no idea what to do. And I keep showing up here and my inspiration is gone, or my self-doubt is sky high, or there's other ways that the subconscious can kind of block us just by throwing distractions in front of us, intrusive thoughts, like all the self-doubts, all the to-do lists coming forward when we should be writing. So that feels really frustrating when we think that we should just be able to do it. And so I help people understand that there's a much more holistic view of the psyche, that there's a lot more going on below the level of consciousness. And one of the biggest things is that big parts of our nervous system are very primitive, and they want to keep us safe. They want to keep us safe in the world. So they're going to hold us back if they feel unsafe. And unfortunately for us, those primitive parts equate anything that's unfamiliar with being unsafe. And so if we're trying to stretch out of our comfort zone or do things that we've never done, that can start to hold us back because it's unfamiliar. We're venturing into new territory, and these primitive parts of our brain just want to stop that. And like I already mentioned, these are protective parts of our psyche. They want to take care of us. It's just that really they're holding us back. They're working off of programming that isn't actually accurate. And so the way that I see fear coming into writer's block is we may not consciously feel afraid, but we have these really specific mental models in our subconscious mind that we formed during childhood, especially in the first 7 years when our nervous system is really malleable. And so we're just wiring in all these models of how the world works. And deep in our subconscious mind, we have a very specific mental model of ourself. And we have a very specific mental model of the world. So when we were kids, if maybe, every time we tried to express ourselves, our teachers or our parents or someone in society didn't want to hear us consistently or kind of criticized us consistently, then we might form a mental model that says, no one wants to hear what I have to say, or the things that I say are bad. That would be the mental model about the sense of self. Or we could put that in a mental model about how the world operates. So we may form deep in our subconscious mind, again, this isn't happening consciously most of the time. We might form a mental model of the world that says the world is harsh, or the world is going to criticize me, or the world doesn't want to hear what I have to say. So these mental models, they're very specific based on the things that we experienced, and they're very strong. And so if we want to put our voice out into the world, put our creativity out into the world, and yet we have these mental models that include a lot of self-doubt, or mental models that include a lot of fear of criticism, or something like that, then this can be really, really difficult. And I love the work of Brené Brown. I imagine you and most of your listeners have heard of her because she's really famous, but she is a social researcher, and she gathers all sorts of data on vulnerability and shame. And she has been gathering data on creativity. And she says that 85% of the population or so has a specific moment they can remember from their childhood of of being criticized to the point that they actually changed their behavior. And that over 50% of those had something to do with our creativity. They had something to do with us expressing our truth in the world. And so I think that's why I see a lot of creatives and writers in my business, because those mental models and those protective parts of their psyche just go crazy sometimes when they try to put their heart into the world, put their work into the world, when they sit down at that blank page to really lay out their truth, and nothing comes forward. So I think that we carry culturally a lot of wounding around our creativity. And if that's there, and if you're experiencing what I already talked about, that kind of those blocks of self-doubt, those blocks of complete lack of inspiration, those blocks of confusion or distraction, or just even kind of self-sabotaging, like I can't even sit down to write. I know I should, but I keep avoiding it. Those often have to do with the subconscious. It often has to do with that creativity wound that Brene Brown has been researching. And I just see that a lot. And that's how I see the subconscious tying into writer's block, is there's some part of the psyche trying to protect us. And there could be mental models that are just subconsciously being activated and holding us back.
And some authors really recognize that they're afraid, right? They'll say, I'm just afraid that this isn't good enough, and we work through a lot of that as an editor, helping them with the developmental edit piece. I'm helping them work through that. That's why we use the model that we do. We work through it one chapter at a time, because that builds belief, right? So pretty soon someone's saying, this is good, right? Yeah, the voice in your head is wrong. Right? So some people can recognize that and go, wait a minute, I am good at this. This is worth bringing to the world, right? Yeah. Especially if you have the help of an editor to make sure that it's clean and tight. Somebody who can say, yeah, this is good, right? What you have is valuable for the world. But if you don't recognize that little voice is speaking to you in that way, then I can see how that would be a block. That would be, even though you're not thinking it consciously, think, oh man, this isn't going to be good enough anyway, or, whatever that is. I think the opposite is also true when we're growing up, when we're young, because I can distinctly remember a couple of times in my own life as a young child, the very first time, whatever grade it is, when you first learn to read out loud. I've always been that person when the teacher said, who wants to go first? I always want to go first. I don't know if that's because I want to get it out of the way, or I'm overeager. I don't know. I don't know what that is. But I always want to go first. And then the comment that the teacher made when I was, and I'm little, right? 7, whatever age that is, her turning to the other teacher and saying, wow, beat that. Right? It wasn't meant for anyone to hear, but that I remember that thinking, look, I'm good at this. Right? So at a pretty young age thinking, oh yeah, I'm good at this. And then, later on in life, having teachers say, wow, this writing is really good. So it really formed as I grew. That's why at the age of 11, I wrote my first book, right? Because I had people reinforcing to me, oh yeah, you're good at this. Right?
Absolutely.
But if you didn't have somebody reinforcing something in you, right, you could easily think, I'm not really good at this, right? This isn't my superpower or whatever. So you're going to help them look inside, if you will, for those things in the subconscious, because really that's what you're talking about, right? Exactly. What did you learn subconsciously that's wackadoodle? Right. That's not right, not true, right? So is this like a lengthy process, or is this something you recognize in people readily?
Yeah. So it can be quick and it can take a long time. It kind of depends, just because everyone is so individual once we dive into the subconscious mind, like what is there. But sometimes people can really just turn things around very, very quickly. So I loved what you said. Well, first of all, I love that people encouraged you when you were young and were proud of you and stuff, because that's just so beautiful. That conditioning does go deep into the psyche, and then it gives you this resource and this strength to carry you forward in life. And I love that you wrote your first book at 11. That's so fantastic. And then what you spoke about with your writers, when you're their editor, you chunk it into smaller pieces so that they get little wins and that they build belief. And I just absolutely love that, because that is one way to reprogram the subconscious mind, is to acknowledge that, like, you have to do something to deal with that voice, and then deal with it gently and step by step, so that you get to grow your self-belief more and more. So I think that's really amazing. And when I work with people, it's more emotional and dealing with the subconscious, but it's similar. So the process that I do is called regenerating images in memory, which is a mouthful, but that's what I'm trained in. I'm a certified regenerating images in memory facilitator. And so the first step is making what is subconscious conscious. So just like you were talking about, like, listen to that voice, and then we're going to do something different. We're going to acknowledge it, but we're going to move beyond it. So the first step always is making whatever is subconscious conscious, because if you're not even conscious that it's happening, and a lot of times we aren't, and a lot of times the people that I work with are incredibly successful and functional in all areas of their life, but there's just this one spot where they feel super stuck, one goal that every time they go for it, they feel something holding them back, or every time they go for it, something goes wonky, or every time they go for it, their inner critic goes absolutely berserk, and so they know there are bigger forces holding them back, because they can be successful. They are highly capable humans, and so it's unusual that this block is like, they're used to being able to just achieving their goals and breaking through. And so, so I take them into their subconscious in a really gentle kind of journey, so that we can actually uncover what is there. Is it an emotion? Is it a childhood memory? Is it just sort of a vague sense of not being enough in the world? And then we give them a different emotional experience, which is what you're doing when you're working with people to build belief, right? Is they're getting the different emotional experience of actually doing it, of actually gaining success. So it sounds like you're doing a great job chunking it and giving them the emotional experience of success when they're struggling. And that's similar to what I would do, except for that mine would be a lot about journeying into the subconscious, journeying into the memories, into the emotions, and really even into the feelings in the body, so that they can start to flow. Because when you do regenerating images in memory, it actually rewires those old pathways. So if you had an old pathway that just consistently told you you would never be enough, or consistently told you would always be too much, or whatever it is, when you go in, make that subconscious conscious, or what science calls it is make the implicit explicit, and then have a new emotional experience. It actually rewires those pathways. So now you have a new pathway of I have succeeded, or I have accomplished this, or I am good enough. So my process is more emotional and working through the subconscious, but it's very similar to what you have found to do with your clients as well.
And it just works, right? It's that consistency, right? We're consistently working toward changing that belief. I'm working towards helping them to see that their writing is good, their message is valuable, that they do have a voice. So I'm chapter by chapter, we're working through that piece of, as I edit and send it back to them to look at, and they see where I've corrected things. Now they learn as they go, right? Like, I shouldn't use the word that every other sentence. And you're right. Yeah, I'm not using enough commas, or, my sentence shouldn't have 35 words in it, right? So some of those things that I don't have to tell them, they see it, and so then they get better and better as they write. And that builds their confidence, and that's that consistent heading into different directions. We're creating that new pathway. So yes, we're doing similar things. You're just doing it inside somebody's head.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do have a question for you. So tell us, how would somebody know if it's a subconscious block that's the problem with their writing? If they're sitting down at the computer and it's blank, how do they know that that's probably the problem?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And really, it's when it feels a little bit out of your control. When you have a conscious intention, but there's something that's getting in your way. And again, that something can be distractions, that something can be the to-do list, that something can be those intrusive thoughts from your inner critic just absolutely going crazy. But it's when you're consciously trying to do something and you're somehow getting derailed. Whatever it is that's derailing you is specific and different for lots of people. For some people, it's like anxiety or worry thoughts will come in. For some people, it's inner critic stuff. And for some people, it's like they just space out, or they just get up and do something, or it's like all of a sudden their to-do list feels so incredibly important that there's nothing else they could possibly focus on. So
I
it's when
need a
you're
drink
just
of water right now.
right, right. So when it feels compulsive, or it feels accidental, or it feels consistent or out of your control, that's when it's really great to look at the subconscious, because you're trying your best and your conscious mind can't really override that just by force. Force doesn't exactly work. In fact, when people are that stuck, one of the things I really encourage is just lots of self-compassion, just lots of understanding that you're not alone and that there's nothing wrong with you. And so I love presenting this holistic model of the psyche to creative people, just because sometimes it can feel good to realize you're not broken, there's nothing wrong, there's probably a part of your psyche trying to protect you, and that part of your psyche is actually doing it from a place of self-love, or that part of your psyche is actually doing it because it cares about you. It's not helping you. This part of your psyche isn't serving you, but it's often coming from a place of love. And if you can stop wrestling with it and fighting it and hating it and judging it, then a big part of the battle is already won, because you can soften and move into self-compassion. And that's always a better place to start from anyway. So,
Of course. And then you must have some tools to help them with corrective behaviors, right? That's where I don't have those particular tools to help them if they're self-sabotaging. And I have had clients for sure who, they we're on a tight schedule, right? Launch day is coming and they're not sending me their chapters. And I reach out and say, hey, just a friendly reminder that I still need to see your chapter for, before our meeting next week. And oh yeah, I'll get that right over to you. And then it doesn't come, this is a great example. Just this morning, I had a client email me and say, great news. No, my chapter isn't done, but I have figured out why my chapter isn't done. I have figured out what the holdup was, and I have dealt with it, and I'm working on my chapter. That's interesting that we're having this conversation today, because it was just a revelation to him. It's like, oh, I figured out why I'm not writing after, several weeks of not writing, to go, oh, there's, other than them coming to that self-realization, I don't really have tools to help them with that piece. So if somebody is stuck, feeling like, I think I have a mental block here, how can they find you? Where can they connect with you to learn more about what you can do to possibly help them?
yeah. Well, I have a free PDF on my website, and it is the ultimate guide to communicating with your subconscious. And so you can go to my website, helloinnerlight.com, and there's a couple prompts there where you can find it, but you could also go to helloinnerlight.com/unblocked, because it's all about moving past the blocks and stepping into a greater coherence with your entire psyche, because I have all the compassion in the world for the self-sabotagers and the procrastinators and the people who have that really high sense of self-doubt, just because I have been there. That is part of my journey, which is exactly why I love working with people to unblock their subconscious, to become more whole, and to work in partnership with their subconscious instead of working against it. So yeah, I have a free guide. I invite you.
Perfect. That is exactly what I was looking for, how they can connect with you and get started with you. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. We are out of time today, but I sure appreciate your time and the value that you have brought to my audience today. So thank you. Maybe we'll have you on the show again someday. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
So, wasn't that awesome? What a great tool that she has for you. Hop on over to her website, helloinnerlight.com/unblocked, and check out her resources. I know that some of you are thinking that's exactly what I need. I know what I'm supposed to be writing. I've been through the brainstorm and blueprint process. I know what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not doing it. I don't know why. Perhaps this is the answer for you. Okay, so I'm just going to really quickly, before we run out of time, talk about the up and coming brainstorm and blueprint. Now, I've been talking about it for a few weeks, so be watching any day now for this to go live. We have a new 6-week group coaching to help you get your book started, plus ongoing support in a private group to help you get the writing done. It is not enough to just go through the brainstorm and blueprint process. You actually need the support of others cheering you on, somebody cheering you on, and you need the accountability. I find that that's the quickest way to get sidetracked and derailed on your writing project is not having someone that you're accountable to. For some people, it's as easy as having your editor or having somebody who's proofreading for you. Sometimes it's just that easy, but for some people, they just need more structure than that. And that's what the Brainstorm and Blueprint coaching program is all about, is going to do for you. So if you're interested, I want you to hop on over to clararose.com and have a look around, familiarize yourself, and then be waiting for, hop on the email list and be waiting for an email to tell you that it is time and the doors are open. The cohort class will be fairly small, so you'll want to know when it's coming, and I would love to see you in there because I'd love to help you get started off on the right foot on your book. Now, if you have already done the brainstorm and blueprint, but you are not working on your book, do reach out to Karena and see if she can help you, but also jump in this class because that accountability piece is going to make the difference for you. I just know it. Okay, we are in the middle of, you already know this, a summer of special guests. So I am excited to next week bring you another special guest, and she is going to talk about overwhelm, and you do not want to miss it. So until next week, I invite you to send me an email, hello@clararose.com. Tell me what you'd like to learn about in the future. And until then, I will see you next week. Thanks so much. See ya.